Popular college basketball pundit Jon Rothstein released his preseason rankings, and he has Illinois at 8th? Huh?
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. A simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sunny Verma, credentialed media member of the Big Ten. You can find me at IlliniCast, or if you find me on TikTok, you can actually watch me record this live and ask any questions you might have. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. College basketball season is not quite around the corner, but it's creeping closer and closer. And Jon Rothstein released his preseason ranking. A lot of us are going to be a little bit surprised at where he ranked the Illini. Also, football training camps get started. I just point out some things that Brett Bielema and some of the assistant coaches said in their pre-training camp press conferences. Some things jumped out at me, and some things I think you guys might find interesting. So let's go ahead and get started. Jon Rothstein, famed college basketball reporter, almost obsessive college basketball reporter, released his first Big Ten offseason preseason rankings. And a lot of us are going to be surprised at where he placed the Illini. Now, most preseason rankings have the Illini the top 3, if not top 4. Of the Big Ten Conference. Usually you see Purdue and Indiana in the top 2 spots, and then Illinois kind of battling anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5. But Jon has Illinois at number 8, and I thought that was very interesting. Does that mean we ourselves are overhyping the Illini? Or does it mean the national media might still be sleeping on Brad Underwood and his squad? Who knows? I thought it was very interesting, the lineup that Jon Rothstein had projected for us next season. He had, of course, Kylan Boswell and Kasparis as our guards. He also had Ty Rodgers and Trey White as our 2 starting forwards. And then as our big, he had Tomislav Ivicic. Now, 3 of those, I think, are pretty much locked in. I can see Kylan Boswell and Kasparis being the starting backcourt. And I can see Tomislav as being the big center, especially you want big length. You want a big guy to, battle some of the physicality that some of the other teams in the Big Ten are going to bring. But Ty Rodgers and Trey White. Trey White is a guy who I think I've mentioned in this show before. A lot of the insiders are very high on. He hasn't really been talked about much when it comes to the fan base. Maybe it's because he was one of the first people that had committed to Brad Underwood over the offseason. I think Jake Davis was first, and then Trey White was shortly thereafter. And so I don't know if maybe that's just a name that's kind of been forgotten in the mix. But Trey White, while somewhat surprising, isn't really that much of a surprise if you really talk to some of the insiders in the program. They're really high on him, and supposedly he's had some really, really good offseason workouts. For me, I just find it difficult because in my eyes, Trey White is battling Ty Rodgers and Will Riley pretty much for the same spot. And if I had to come up with a power ranking, I'd probably put Trey White 3rd amongst that list. Ty Rodgers, of course, I think he'll probably start because I think you have to ultimately separate Ty Rodgers and Morez Johnson. But again, what do you do with Will Riley? People are going to want to know. Will Riley, if you're a 5-star athlete, you're one of the highest rated recruits that Illinois has ever gotten, you would think that there might be some chance that promises were made about starting. So did Will Riley get a promised starting spot? Who knows? Maybe he's going to be starting in front of Kasparis, though I doubt it. But you never actually know. But I guess the overall thing I wanted to talk about is the number 8 position. Now, is falling to 8 possible? Sure it is. I talked last week, an episode that half of you really liked and half of you really, really disliked, was me talking about the worst case scenario for the Illini this year. I don't have to keep repeating myself. I think this year's team is going to be a lot more talented, maybe not a lot more, higher ceiling talent than last year's team, but they're also a lot younger. And we're going to have a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds playing a lot of minutes on the court this year. So I do think that there is a scenario where if some guys take longer to adjust, we could have a very rough out of conference performance. Again, it's a very tough schedule that Brett Underwood has put together. And you would hope that the coaching staff is strong enough and that they're not going to let the rest of the team lose their confidence, but you don't really know, right? Again, Kasparis, if you want to battle something like, being homesick, as well as he's played in some of these tournaments overseas, you're starting to see some of the flaws start popping up too. He played another game just earlier on Monday, and again, I think he had like 6 or 7 turnovers. You see that popping up more and more as a concern. Will Riley, again, I'm not going to rehash the episode from last week. Please watch it if you guys get a chance, but he is a raw freshman. He needs to build some muscle. I think he'll be able to score, but we never really know. Of course, there's a chance that Illinois ultimately ends up at the number 8 spot in the Big Ten Conference. Would I bet on it? No. I think if you told me ultimately that Illinois at the end of the season was number 8 in the Big Ten, a lot of things certainly went wrong. Us Illini fans, for the most part, this summer have been riding high, in particular over the last month and a half or so, and that's just because of us getting Kasparis and seeing his highlights on all the social media, and then shortly thereafter, kind of surprisingly landing 5-star Will Riley, which was a shock to many, many people, and so. Coming off an Elite 8 run, a lot of us are very confident in our program, and we're ready to go ahead and compete for the conference, which don't get me wrong, I think we have the potential of doing. But we finally went over the hump last year and making it to the Elite 8. Do I see something like that happening this year? No, and I've talked about that before. I think this is a Sweet 16 team. I don't know if our ceiling's much higher than that. I know some of you are going to disagree with me in the comments, and that's perfectly okay. A lot of you are a lot smarter than I am. I'm just simply saying how I feel right now as I see it. But, when it comes to, if you ask a lot of Illini fans on Twitter or whatever it might be, they want to win the Big Ten Conference. And then we have these sort of rankings for Jon Rothstein, and I'm sure there's going to be more that come out over the next couple of weeks as the season gets closer, who may not have us just as high. Again, 8 I do think is a little low, but where's the middle ground? Middle ground is probably where we're going to end up. It sounds like a very lazy take to say that Illinois will finish 3rd or 4th or 5th in the conference, and it's one of those where Illini fans aren't going to be happy hearing that, and that's okay. We're building a reputation amongst ourselves. Reputation is the wrong word. Expectation amongst ourselves where we want to be competing with Purdue every single year for the conference. I just think the task in front of Brad Underwood right now, where he had to replace 10 players in one offseason, is going to be a really daunting one. And we've got to leave a little margin for error. And that's why ultimately I think, Purdue returning so many players, including who will probably be the preseason player of the year, Braden Smith. I think they're the clear number 1 in the Big Ten. Indiana's brought in a lot of talent. Now, we talk about Illinois bringing in a lot of talent. Indiana has brought in more college-proven talent. I don't necessarily think they're better just because I don't know how much I trust Mike Woodson, and I know I trust Brad Underwood over Mike. But, if we're just if I'm sitting here saying Illinois has a higher ceiling than the team last year, well, then I also have to be honest with you guys and say, well, yeah, but if we're just basing standings on what a team's potential ceiling is going to be, well, Indiana's is higher than anybody's in the conference this year. Number 8 for me does seem kind of low. I just don't think that I'm going to be counting on that many things going wrong for the Illini. I do think that Brad and Coach Antigua and Coach Tim Anderson and the rest of the coaching staff, we've kind of instilled a culture in the program now where the expectation is to win. And while sure we're dealing with egos and, potentially fragile egos, I mean, let's be honest, 2 years from now, I thought Jaden Epps was going to be a 4-year Illini player. I thought he was the epitome of the typical Underwood recruit. He wasn't. He just could not handle it. So a lot of it, we're going to have to wait to see how the season goes and how the season starts. And once we do, we can kind of get a fair judgment on ultimately where the standings look like. But as of now, my preseason rankings aren't out yet. If I had to guess, I'm taking the easy way out. Top 4, Jon Rothstein at number 8 is way too low. But again, is that just because he truly believes that? Or is that because he knows if he puts Illinois at number 8, Illinois fans are going to be clicking on that article, complaining, and giving them interactions? I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We are less than 30 days away now for football season to officially kick off. The Illini will play Eastern Illinois. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Central Time on August 29th. Again, football season is right around the corner, and on Monday, Bret Bielema and the staff finally were able to run their first practice of the upcoming season. So basically now they're going to be grinding it out with the players over the next X amount of days and really try to get everybody ready and adjusted and ready to go for this football season, which I've talked about before. It's going to be very important for Bret and the staff. No coach has had a better initial 3-year run than Coach Bielema. However, the fact that we've missed bowl games 2 out of the 3 years still has left the fan base, how do I word it, maybe empathetic and not as excited as we possibly could be had a ball bounced one way or the other, especially last season with the last 6 games. You're talking about games all that finished within 6 points. And, you're talking about a bounce here and there, or I already referenced the Wisconsin game last week in an episode where if things had just gone differently slightly, we could have been talking about a team that is coming off of back-to-back bowling seasons. But we're going to be talking about training camp a lot on this show. One of the main stories, of course, is going to be the quarterback situation for the Illini, but I figure I can save that for another episode. What I also wanted to talk about, which has to do with the quarterback position, is obviously going to be newcomer Zakhari Franklin. Bret Bielema had a press conference earlier today where he talked about Zakhari Franklin going to be limited in some of the practices, at least early on. And usually that would be a cause of concern. But as most of you know, in the particular case of Zakhari, it may not exactly be, because he and Barry Lunny Jr. already have a history of working together previously at UTSA. When asked about it, Illinois offensive coordinator Barry Lunny Jr. Did talk about it, saying, obviously, it's a unique situation, and the fact that if Zakhari had not played under my offense and the offense that we were doing previously, that would be a grave concern coming in this time of year. Not a grave concern, but a challenge, a little bit more of one. I don't think it's going to be as big of a challenge because I would say 50 to 75% of it, he's going to have some familiarity with, even though we've changed a lot of things up. He can translate that. So I think that after this camp will be great for all our football team, but in particular, after the 3 weeks crash course that Zakhari is going to get, I think he'll be in shape and positioned to be able to streamline in our offense and not have any challenges. Now, Zakhari's role on this team is going to be massive, and I don't have to tell you guys why. For the first time in a long time, it looks like Illinois is going to be counting on its offense to carry its defense. 2 years ago, Illinois had the best defense in the entire country, and last year, of course, it was a complete disaster. This upcoming season, Luke Altmaier is going to be a second-year returning starting quarterback. Our running back room is one of the better ones in the conference. And while there was very high expectations for Pat Bryant to be able to jump into that number one role, what Brett Bielema and staff ultimately ended up doing is in bringing Zakhari Franklin in, they brought in the most accomplished wide receiver in all of college football. And when I say Zakhari Franklin is the most accomplished wide receiver in the sport today, I mean career numbers-wise. His active career receiving yards is 3,366 in 50 career games with 266 receptions and 38 touchdowns. This wide receiver room is a very green one for the Illini this year. It's very raw. Talented, but very raw. And so having that kind of leadership come in with Pat Bryant, who, don't get me wrong, he's been in the program for 4 years now. So he himself is a veteran who's going to be stepping into one of the leadership roles. He was the number 3 wide receiver on last year's team, if you recall. But what you do by bringing in a guy like Zakhari Franklin is you're bringing in the alpha guy in that room. A guy which other teams are now going to have to focus in on defense, which is going to make guys like Pat Bryant's life a lot easier. In particular, maybe a guy like Malik Elzy, who, being a wide receiver number 2, you would think that there's a lot of added pressure that comes with that. But now being the number 3 guy and having the opposition having 2 wide receivers that they're probably going to have to put their better defensive backs against, hopefully what that does is that opens things up to a guy like Malik Elzy to really grow into the promise that he had coming when he committed to the Illini. Malik was one of the more exciting commitments that Brett Bielema has had. He had I would probably say somewhat of a disappointing freshman year. He wasn't really on the field all that much, but regardless, at least next season, there's going to be some serious expectations on Malik to not just make a leap for himself, but to make guys like Luke Altmaier's job a lot easier. We should have a very solid running game with a very solid offensive line, but all that works if you can balance it out. And by balancing it out, you're going to need the receivers able to do what they're being asked to do. We'll be talking about Zakhari, Malik, Pat, and all the other wide receivers very soon when we discuss the wide receiver preview episode, which will probably be next week. I think I'm probably going to be running the running backs room this week. I have a special guest on to talk about Caden Fagan and on whether he can become the next 1,000-yard rusher for Brett Bielema. So definitely stay tuned for that. Are you taking the dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all your purchases so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Jeremy Warner of 24/7 Sports, the Illini Inquirer, which in my opinion is the best Illinois content out there, premium content out there. So if you haven't already, please check them out. I got to meet Jeremy and Joey in person at Media Day last weekend. They were just wonderful, wonderful guys. Well, Jeremy reported that Illinois will be bringing in Zakhari Franklin, a 4-star from Morgan Park High School right outside Chicago, in for a visit on Monday. Now, Nasir is an interesting prospect in the sense that he's being brought in for a football visit, but he's actually an outstanding basketball player as well. And so he actually isn't quite sure which way he's leaning when it comes to what sport he wants to play at the collegiate level. To give you an idea, Nebraska has already offered him to play football, but on that visit, we had Fred Hoiberg, who actually also came in to talk to him and watch him work out a little bit. So whether he's a guy who can ultimately play 2 sports at the collegiate level, that really doesn't happen all that often anymore. And more than likely, he's going to have to decide and commit to a certain sport, one or the other. Now, granted, his football offer sheet isn't quite as high as his ranking suggests it could be. Why that might be, who knows? He has limited experiences and going to the training camps, and so maybe his exposure is somewhat limited. But again, Illinois last year got a wide receiver out of Morgan Park named Tyshawn Griffin, who unfortunately right now is hurt, but they do have a good relationship with the coaching staff over there. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we can find some sort of way to bring Nasir to Champaign. That's just about going to wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in again. Please, on your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 900 at the beginning of this recording. So, my journey to hit 1,000 by the football season, it's going to cut it close, but I really think that we can do it, especially with your help. Follow me at IlliniCast. Also find that page on YouTube. Both on right here on Locked On Illini and on IlliniCast, I'll be going live for pre-games and post-games. You're not going to find more YouTube content about the Illini than this here channel. And I promise I'm going to be bringing it to you daily. I'm the only one to do that. Just remember that. So all I ask in return, again, is to share this with your friends. Just help me grow this channel. And, even if you're feeling a little bit lazy today, just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That'll do it for today. I will see you guys in tomorrow's episode. ILL. Love you guys.